Hi, I'm Bryan Post, and I want to talk to you just a little bit about stress and attachment. I came up with the stress model 20 years ago, and it was a long process of kind of questioning and asking myself. Really, there was one question I was asking myself, to be honest with you, and it's what leads to attachment? When I first started working as a clinician, the big diagnosis at the time was reactive attachment disorder. And so everyone was talking about attachment and bonding. Attachment is the process of the child connecting to the parent. Bonding is the process of the parent connecting to the child. And it's this amazing process that happens in biological families right after the child's born, the child's placed on the mother's breast, and there's a neurophysiologic process that unfolds. Well, what happens when the child is adopted? Because there can't be the same process. And oftentimes it becomes a traumatic process because the child has been in the womb for 9 months, has only heard this mother's voice, has only had smells associated to this mother, has only had temperatures associated with this mother, has only had interactions with the outer world as they're funneled through this mother. All of a sudden, this child is now absent of this mother. It could be that they're infants, newborns. It could be that they're 2 years old, 5 years old, or 10 years old before they go into foster care and eventually become adopted. But the point is, they lose that connection. So it's broken. Now, what happens when that connection is broken is it actually creates stress within the body-mind system. When that stress sets in, it is associated with connection. So I'm going to slow down and I want to say that again because it's going to be really important as you are working with children to develop stronger attachment, that you understand how that works. When an attachment bond has been broken, there is a negative association with attachment. So when an attachment bond, the relationship the child's formed with the parent and the relationship the parent has formed with the child, when that's broken because of abuse or because the child goes into foster care, because of the death of a parent, domestic violence, whatever the situation may be, the association to attachment now becomes stressful, sometimes trauma-inducing. So then the child grows up, and you have to understand this is unconscious. This is not at a conscious level. The child grows up sensitive to future attachments. Future attachments, future bonding opportunities actually create stress for the child, which then in turn can create stress for the parents. So I grew up, I say grow up because as a clinician, I literally grew up during the 90s, the decade of the brain. Now, obviously, I'm 46 years old. I was born in 1973, but as a therapist and a clinician, I grew up during the decade of the brain. So everything was about how the brain responds to stress, how the regulatory system functions when it's been impacted by stress, when it's been impacted by trauma, and then ultimately the impact on relationships that it has. And so I started to ask myself the question, what is it that leads to attachment? Because I didn't feel like this amazing experience between the parent and child was all there was. And so because of all of the information and knowledge from the decade of the brain, I learned that it's actually stress that makes attachment possible. When you are able to regulate stress, you're actually able to regulate your attachment system to be able to connect with another individual. But when you're not able to regulate stress, your cellular system constricts into survival, therefore you're not able to connect with another person. This becomes really important when it comes to working with children, because I also came to understand that stress belies challenging behaviors. So stress becomes the major obstacle that we're facing when we are working with traumatized children who have a lot of behavior problems. When you understand that it's stress and the ability to regulate the stress that makes attachment possible, it's the same with the parents. It's the parent's ability to regulate stress that makes bonding possible. See, it's attachment and bonding. It's a two-way street. And a lot of times in a mental health profession, we want to just focus on the child and their behaviors, on the child and their stress, without realizing it is a two-way street. It's a reciprocal process. You can't have a child attached to a parent who's unable to bond because the physiology is closed off. When we're able to understand this in a deeper level, then we're able to start focusing on stress as a true variable to creating the challenges that families face. The more we come to understand just how important stress is in the way we function, we start to understand and start to be able to see it in ourselves and in our children. Because a lot of times, the things you're dealing with your children is not just about the behavior. A lot of times, the challenges you have as a parent or as an adult is not just about right now in this moment. It's about the stress that's been building up that gets to that place that you're now experiencing this behavior challenge, or you're now experiencing this tension. When you make the regulation of stress, and regulation being the ability to maintain stress within a window of tolerance, when you make the ability to regulate stress the priority, then everything else starts to change.